Hi, I'm Nicola Cairncross.
Hi, hello, hey, hi.
I'm going to talk to you about success. Yes.
Hi everyone, it's Nicola here, and I'm back on the balcony in Greece, as you may have noticed. I was planning to stay in England for another 4 or 5 weeks and go travelling about visiting people, but I decided that I wanted to come back here and base myself here instead, because here feels like home now. Obviously, I really enjoyed spending time with Phoebe and Nelson and watching them doing their thing, Phoebe with her video and Nelson with his music. We even got to lay a few bars in the kitchen one night, which was quite good fun. But yeah, I think for the next few years here is going to be home, and I'm going to talk about why in the middle section a bit more. It was a pretty gruelling first thing in the morning flight. I don't know, I know why EasyJet do it at 5:35 in the morning. It's because that's the cheapest slots for them. But the worst thing about that is if you're travelling from anywhere far away, you end up sitting in the airport for a few hours, and for some reason they don't see fit to open things, even though there's a captive audience of people who are trying to kill a few hours. You think they'd sort that out, wouldn't you? The only thing that was open in the terminal I was in was a Jamie Oliver's coffee shop, so good for Jamie. He deserves his MBE just for making it bearable for people who are getting EasyJet flights. The other thing is that there is a yotel apparently, and there's also supposed to be a hotel called The Block, and they're really very convenient little hotels. They're actually in the terminal themselves, so you don't have to go off to another place, and they are available for hire from 4 hours onwards. So they're very tiny and they're very inexpensive, and you get basically a bed to lie down on, which is quite frankly what you want in the middle of the night, and a shower and a loo and a space to put your suitcase, and that's pretty much it. But who needs more than that when you're just waiting for a plane, eh? So interesting how the things, the problems are created by greater choice, and then some entrepreneurs invent solutions. Another example I saw this week was I was watching BBC World News, and they were talking about the big solar panel farms in India, and how just opened one that will provide electricity for like 1.5 million people or something. But one of the biggest challenges in India is that there's no water to keep the solar panels clean. So some bright spark has come up with a machine that moves along the solar panels and dry dusts them to keep the dust off, because obviously if they get covered in dust they're not going to soak up the sun's rays. So it's ingenious how some businesses are born out of a problem, and I can't understand why Gatwick Airport aren't solving the problem of all those people milling about an airport between sort of 1 and 3 a.m, and which is the earliest you can check in, and they're not catering for them. Once you get through security and you're on the other side, there's shops, restaurants, all sorts of things. Well, shouldn't it be like that on the front end? I don't know, very odd. So that's just my ramblings and ravings for this week, and let's move on to the middle bit, shall we? So today I want to talk to you about why I ended up coming back to Greece, and it wasn't the plan at all. The plan was to go to England and stay there for a few weeks and travel about and see various people and go and stay with people. The most wonderful thing about Greece is the quiet. The problem is that any noise travels, especially on still days like today, any noise travels enormously. So I can hear the kid of a house about 1,000 metres away, and one of my neighbours just started banging down the hill. There you go. But as they say, the best laid plans of mice and men after gang astray. Well, what I found was that while it was wonderful hanging out with Phoebe and Nelson, and it really was wonderful to see them, I found that I didn't have anything to go out for in Shoreham. So while I was in Shoreham, apart from when Phoebe and Nelson were there, I found myself getting rather bored and rather lonely. yeah, the great big Steve-shaped hole in Shoreham still, and looking out from the flat where I was staying with my ex-husband's flat. Just looking over to where he used to live was just really quite painful. And I don't really have that many friends and acquaintances in Shoreham anymore. I mean, if I go out in a pub, there's people to say hi to, but there's nobody to actually spend time with. And as someone who works from home on their own, which I really love, I need company, it seems, outside office hours. So I thought I'd come back to Greece. The house was free, the house we've been staying in over the winter, and the minute I walked down to the village, there's loads of people I know. And because we were trying to work it out actually last night, why people seem to have so much more time to spend time with people here. I think it's because most people are retired here, apart from the people who are working in the tavernas, obviously. So it's just, there's a lot more company for me here, and there's people with similar interests. I went to a group called Write Club yesterday, where everybody's either written a novel, writing a novel, or in the process of learning how to write a novel, and that's my kind of interest. I'm not really good at doing nothing. I like, what's it called? Purposeful leisure time. That's what it's called. And you can also get purposeful travel. You know, those kind of holidays where you go and learn how to paint, or learn how to cook, or learn how to paint and cook. In Italy, for example. Always fancied that. I love travelling in terms of work as well. I'm going to Brisbane for work shortly, and I'll have a couple of days either side to do some sightseeing on that, and perhaps visit some people who live on the Gold Coast. So yeah, purposeful travel, purposeful leisure, living in a community that's small enough for people to get to know you. That's really important, I think, and it's, in a way, it's very accessible for digital nomads to do that. I think if you're working at home on a computer, you know, all day, you really want to have some people to interact with at the end of that day, or even, ideally, not even at the end of the day, halfway through the day. And there's lots of opportunities to do that. You know, there's a place, there's Chiang Mai in Thailand, is a very big expat digital nomad community. I know there are other cities around the world. I know that Eastern European cities are becoming very digital nomad friendly, and just this week we heard about a city in Italy who is not only paying you $1,000 to go and live there, but they're giving, you know, people dirt cheap rents. They're doing up properties, the town council, and they're giving people dirt cheap rents to go and live there. All their, you know, that they've obviously know they've got to supply super fast broadband for people to be able to do that. But it's a great way to regenerate inner towns and villages in the more rural parts of Greece, Italy, France, and that sort of thing. And the hilarious thing is that all you need is super fast broadband, and I'm in Greece that the broadband's not super fast, I can tell you that. And I came back to from Kalamata Airport to find it was actually off for the whole day, but it's back on now, and it's working fine, so fingers crossed. It might just have been the atmospheric conditions, you never know. So in conclusion, I think the thing is to build a community of people online who you can hang out with on Facebook groups, in forums and things like that, so that you've got company during the day when you're working, if you want it. And also to choose to live somewhere where you've got people to go out with and hang out with and pursue other interests with once you turn the computer off. On the podcast this week, we're talking about the scamper method, which is a way of brainstorming creatively alternative solutions to a problem or a challenge you might be facing. And on the NicolaCairncross.com/blog, we are talking about the 5 numbers you must know in your business. And if you do know those numbers, you can do things like going on holiday without worrying about whether your business is falling apart without you. Speak to you later. Bye. And there's a couple of sparrows having a fight behind me. Clear off, you lot. I'm recording. There is a client consult. I've just got to give you a little taste of the solitude and quietness around here. I think that's the scrap man. Or it's the veg man, and he really winds the dog up down the road, hates it, so he's not howling, he's barking, and the neighbour's banging. and it's so quiet and still here, you can hear absolutely everything. Madness.